took the memory course.
I think it's
What's that?
one after one, so I think we're good to get started.
Okay.
Yeah, so everyone, thanks for coming here. As you've probably already seen, I'm doing say hi to the new guy, how non-traditional backgrounds can mature your security program. When I talked to a couple people about this, there was one thought that it was one of the forefronts that I heard from people is this is exclusionary. So what I want to say is that this is not exclusive to guys. It just rhymes with high. That's all. This was kind of birthed out of my experience being somebody that came from a non-traditional background, and we'll talk a bit about what that looks like for me. Is that you too? Okay, actually, can I get a poll of hands? Who came from something they would deem a non-traditional background?
Semi-non-traditional.
I love that. I love that. And the other point that I want to make, and it just flows in well to this, is that by no means do I say that non-traditional backgrounds add more value. It's not the argument I'm trying to make. More what I want to say is that traditionally we have not really looked into non-traditional backgrounds, and that can be a slew of different backgrounds. It could be, depends on who you talk to, but we haven't really looked at them, and I think we're missing out on a lot of good quality content and a lot of good quality candidates. So I just want to present and why I think there are a lot of good people out there, and how we can support them, how we best can position them. So, yeah, those are the two little bits I wanted to say before I started. I'm going to talk more about me than I normally do. I don't really like to talk about myself a lot, but I think it's particularly relevant for this talk. Who am I? I'm a husband. I put that first because my wife is one of the biggest drives for me getting into this field, and I always want to give her credit because she is awesome. She's going to be a 5th grade teacher. She's been teaching 3rd grade, and she's switching into 5th this year. So I'm super excited for her because she wanted to get into 5th grade. I'm a hot sauce connoisseur. By that, I mean I loved hot sauce so much that I went and made a hot sauce company. So if I'm not doing something Infosec related, I'm probably doing something related to making, bottling, sealing, selling hot sauce. My company is called Maestro's Sauce Co. If you guys want to talk to me about it afterwards, I would love to talk to you about hot sauce. I claim escape room expert because I've done 20 of them, and that's more than the average person. I've successfully completed 18, so I got like a 90%. I don't know if that makes me an expert, but I'll take it. And then I'm a musician. I paid a good portion of my way, at least some of my way through school playing music, a couple different instruments. Some credentials about me. My background, as you see, I have a non-Infosec history, but I do have a crisis counseling degree, and that's really where a lot of, I would say a lot of my formative time was in crisis counseling. Certified ethical hacker, certificate of cloud security knowledge. Some people care about the certs, some people don't, but I put them up if you are interested. And then the more fun part is my non-Infosec history, and that's what people tend to find interesting. I was a dorm mom for a period, which meant that I had 15 international high school students that I was responsible for. 16. 15 were from China and 1 was from South Korea. So my role was to make sure they got off the bus after school. They were doing their homework. Everybody took off their shoes and everything. Did what you might see as a parent role. And then I started making dinner. Made sure that they ate their dinner. I helped them with their homework afterwards. Made sure everybody got to bed on time, and then let the next person come in. So I did that for a while. I spent a good period.
Where'd you do that at?
I did that in Central PA and the Altoona area.
I thought you started the one at St. Francis,
Oh.
the South End.
That was the one. Yeah, there was maybe it's a different St. Francis, but it was St. Francis in Altoona.
Yeah, no, this is in Hamburg.
Okay.
South Bay.
That's funny. Yeah, so same concept. That was what I did. I was a truck driver for moving companies for about 4 years throughout college and after. I will put my moving numbers up against anybody else in this room that I've done more moves than you, and I would never want to do another one. After that, I was a logistics coordinator for a company called Tough Mudder. And Tough Mudder, if you're not familiar, they do 10-mile mud runs. And so my role was to go to site, make sure that I worked with the DJs, I worked with the vendors, made sure that the event went off without a hitch. So I did that for a while, traveled across the country, I went through to 40 states doing that, and really enjoyed my time. What my actual degree was for family counseling, crisis counseling. So my role was a family preservation counselor. What that means is that I would go into the home, do in-home family counseling with the parents, the kids, any siblings. We got most of our referrals from CYS. We got some from juvenile detention. But my role was to assess the situation, see if I could help the family develop boundaries and an appropriate living situation. And if I couldn't do that, then I made recommendations for foster care or for alternative living conditions. And it was, as you can imagine, very emotionally taxing. I saw a lot of things in that field that made me realize I don't want to be in that field for the long term. So I did that for a while. Some family issues had me move back from the central PA area to Pittsburgh, which is where I'm born and raised. And I decided I wanted to go into cybersecurity. Somebody said, "Hey, I can get you at least a foot in the door. You're gonna have to do everything else, but I can get you an interview." So I said, "Cool, I can do something with computers. I don't know anything about them." At the time, I couldn't install Minecraft on my own computer. I had to have my friends install it on my computer because I couldn't figure it out. But I know I'm a problem solver. I know that I'm determined and I can figure it out. So I started studying for the A+, because somebody said you should study for the A+. So I studied for the A+, and I failed the A+. But putting on my resume pending was enough for somebody to take a chance on me. And they said, "I see you're interested." So they gave me an opportunity to start installing servers and workstations at the local library system. It was a very short contract. I did it for 3 months. But in that time, I was able to demonstrate some of my leadership abilities from my counseling role and my coordination roles. And then I had an opportunity to do an internship in cloud security. So I did that, and I worked, as I'm sure many of you have, very long days, and I didn't get paid for those days. But it was something that I could put on my resume until I got into a Fortune 200, and I started cutting my teeth on their IAM team, just learning how does Active Directory work, how do I administer, I can't, just mixing up my words, administer permissions in Oracle or any other application. How do I go about doing that? So I did that for a while. I moved into internal audit, then I moved into risk management. Those are some of the highlights of my Infosec history. But that's how I got where I am now. And on to what I currently do, if my little thing works. And it looks like it doesn't. Oh no. I think the battery died. That's a bummer. So what I do now is I'm a manager at a consulting firm. I manage our risk advisory team. We have we're called Echelon Risk and Cyber, based out of the Pittsburgh area, but we have team members all across the country. We have our offensive security team, who are some of the most talented pen testers I've ever worked with. Those guys are teaching me something new every day, and I dabble a bit on that side and do some of the pen tests, but really my bread and butter is the risk assessments and compliance. On a normal day, you might find me doing business continuity, disaster recovery plans, IR tabletops. A lot of my bread and butter is risk assessments or compliance assessments. So we work with CMMC, HIPAA, GLBA, pretty much you name it, we have experience in performing assessments. And then our defensive team, they do a lot of the engineering of hands-on keyboard, doing the engineering of whatever security solution you need, really. We do a lot of assessments on firewalls, Active Directory security assessments. There's a lot, and we're always learning something new. All of that frequently gets wrapped up in our BSides service, where we lay out a roadmap and you get the breadth of everything we do for a year. We talk through what you want to accomplish and move on from there. So really love Echelon, really love my teammates there. I can't say enough good things about them. But we're going to move on to why you're actually here, for the non-traditional backgrounds. And I think this is really relevant, especially right now, because we're seeing some unprecedented amounts of people that are making these transitions. There are a ton of people like me, and a ton like a lot of you that raised your hands, that are coming from these non-traditional fields, And they're going to keep coming. We have more and more applicants that are making a transition. So we need to be prepared for that. I think this also matters because we're in the Infosec field. I think we're underprepared for the coming years. ISC Squared says that we have a 2.72 million person deficit in the cybersecurity workforce, meaning that there are that many roles that we need to have filled with qualified people, and that we're going to need in those roles. I think this is also important because there's a lot of really great experience out there that's not being tapped right now. We're looking at more traditional means. There's a lot more out there than what we're looking at. And we really need good people. We need critical thinkers, we need leaders, we need problem solvers, we need troubleshooters, because at the end of the day, the tech, the policies, the processes, they can all be taught, but there are qualities that people have that have been developed over their time in other fields that you can't teach. You know, it's very difficult to teach problem solving or how to communicate with somebody. Those soft skills are so valuable, and they can mature our programs by so much. So as far as what we're going to do today, we want to talk about the, oh, now you want to work, that's cool. We're going to talk about why people are switching careers, what do non-traditional backgrounds offer, what qualities should we expect in somebody that is coming from another field, and then how do we support them. Excuse me. So why the new blood? I think there are a lot of reasons that are contributing to us getting more, we'll call them new blood, into the field. The first and obvious one is COVID, right? It's been the last 2.5 years that it's taken over our lives, 2 years, I guess. And it's changed everything. Remote work is now kind of the standard for a lot of organizations, and if it's not, we are at a place that you can go somewhere else. And that's just the reality. It's so interesting right now because I just put out a position a few weeks ago for a consultant role. I had 150 resumes in the first, I think, 2 days. I can't tell you how many of them were, one, from a field outside of what I'm doing right now or outside of this, but also how many of them, when you start talking to them or you email them, they're like, hey, I already accepted another position. People are moving quickly right now, and it's hard to find people, but from the other side, you might find yourself in a position where I'm one of those 150, and I'm not getting a call back, but why am I not getting it? How can I be at the top of that resume stack? It's a really weird place right now where it's not really anybody's market. It's just kind of, we're missing each other. Where there's a need, the person who needs it is not finding the right person. And for that, I don't have the one and only answer, but I do think that we can start looking elsewhere. But the integration of work and life is another thing that I think is causing career transitions. People are seeing that we as in Infosec, IT, wherever you define yourself, you're working from home, and there's good and bad to that. A lot of people are working from home. If you're not working from home, you probably still have some level of work you're taking home with you. You're thinking about work. You take your laptop home. It's just becoming more normal that work and life are less divorced from each other, and we just kind of have associated our lives as this is a portion of it. Good and bad to that. It makes a work-life balance much tougher for sure. Some of the societal changes I've seen, obviously, they're calling it the Great Resignation. There were 4 million people that quit their jobs in November of last year. Just in November. And when polled, 50% of them said that they were going to be going to another field, and that's why they were leaving. Others, some of them said it was they didn't feel respected at their jobs. Others said it was salary. But 50% said they're going to another field. And there's something about our field that is very attractive, and we're going to talk about that too. But yeah, I think there are definitely things that are contributing. The biggest thing, why are people coming to this field over other ones? And the obvious answer is because it's the best job in the world, right? At least according to Google. I Googled this, and I'm not kidding, this is the screenshot. It was #1 information security analyst, and I couldn't believe it. Not because I don't love my job, but just how funny it was. Because I'm sure if you talk to some people, they wouldn't feel that way. But I think there are a lot of things that attract people to this field specifically. One is just the accessibility of information. You can go onto YouTube, you can sign up for Udemy, Pluralsight, try Hack Me, Security Blue Team. There are so many ways for you to learn right now. And it's not like that in other fields. If you want to learn coding, if you want to work, if you want to learn any type of dev, if you want to learn red team, blue team, there's opportunities out there. For me, it was Professor Messer on YouTube, and that was like my first. I watched a bunch of his courses while trying to get through the CompTIA A+, and when I went on to study for my CEH, I was going through. I think I went through some Udemy courses for that one, but there's just so many opportunities and so many ways to learn, where for someone like me, if I was still in counseling, my next role is I have to get my licensure, I have to get a master's. There are many more steps that are a lot more financially impactful to me that are not going to produce the same results. So I think the accessibility of information and the ability to be, in some sense, credentialed, showing, hey, look, I might have this counseling degree, but I also got my CEH or I got my OSCP. Some people care, like I said, about research in the beginning, others don't. I think regardless, you have to have a level of respect for somebody that has gone the extra distance to put themselves out there and do something. There's this perceived stability in this field, which people keep hearing cyber. They hear about ransomware in the news. So they're like, I want to get in on that because everyone's talking about it. It must be the next big thing, and it kind of is. Maybe not the next big thing, but it's not going anywhere. Our field's not going anywhere. So people think, maybe I can move into that field. There's stability, there's the projected growth. We have I think 28% projected growth through 2026. One of the things that I have found, and you might have seen the same, is that this field is so interdisciplinary now, where it's no longer just firewalls or just your SIM or your SOC team. It's now touching risk management and your legal and compliance and your vendor relations. It touches everything. So some people come through associated work. I've worked with a lot of people that said, I worked in supply chain, and then somebody came in and did an audit and talked to me about all these third-party risks that I never thought of and thought were awesome. And then I started looking into them, and now it turned into a GRC love. So I think people are seeing it from other fields, and then of course it just sounds cool, because it is cool. And there are so many options. There's just so much to choose from. How can you ever be bored in this field when you can go into any of these domains? And this map, if you haven't seen it before, continues to grow. I think every couple years, Henry Zhang at Diligent puts this out, and it's just bigger every time. And I look at this sometime and think, oh man, I know these parts really well, and I have no idea what the heck that is, and it humbles me because this field, if it's not humbling enough, yeah, I get humbled by this. So I want to talk about what these non-traditional backgrounds can offer. I will not make the argument that you should go out and hire a salesperson as your CISO. That doesn't make sense. What I will say is, if you're looking for somebody that you want to invest in, if you're looking for somebody that has shown drive, that has shown these qualities we're going to talk about, maybe hire a salesperson as an IAM specialist. Cool. So what do they offer? I think they offer perspective, a different view on things. I think they offer a cultural impact, which is not just are they going to fit in with the culture. I think it's more than that. And then there are certain qualities that I think you have to have. I'm not going to say everybody's going to be a great speaker. Not everybody's going to be a big problem solver. Those are things we look for, but I think there are certain qualities that they have to have to even get into this field. And if they've shown an interest in their field, they're going to have them. So as far as perspective goes, I think the new blood brings valuable perspective to our efforts through, as I said, their problem solving, their empathy for how others think, and just new ways to tackle our problems. know, if we are coming at issues with very traditional means and they're not working, new blood is going to be able to help us look outside of ourselves, help us think about things differently and look outside the box. I love the, if the only tool you have is a hammer, it's tempting to treat everything as if it were a nail, because I think that's what we do sometimes. We just take these SOPs and this is how we've always done it, and if somebody comes in and shakes that up a bit, it's not a bad thing. And I think they're able to have the perspective of the business. We have this idea frequently, I'm sure you've heard it, of IT versus the business. We need to stop thinking like that, because we are very much one organization. Whatever organization you're a part of, it's one organization. And it's too big anymore to think of it as just IT versus the business. But they can bring the end user mentality, maybe a project manager, whatever their prior role was, they're going to bring a different perspective from that and be able to speak to that. If your tensions with your end user are over, why do you keep clicking this email? They're going to be able to say, well, because you haven't backed this up with a threat. Nobody has, no, for when I was an end user, nobody really told us why this matters. Nobody told us there was a repercussion. And if you can get inside their head, now they're able to add some insight and they're able to add some background and context to what your efforts are. I think culturally, as I said before, we can't just look at, do they fit the culture? Because I think culture is one of the most important parts of a thriving organization. When I'm hiring, it's one of the things that I look for the absolute most. Is this person going to fit? But not only are they going to fit, I want them to improve my culture. Because my culture is great as it is, but I know there's room for improvements. So I'm looking for somebody that is going to be able to come in and not be afraid to tell me, I don't like that this is run this way, or I think we could run this a different way. So I think somebody that comes from outside is going to be able to, we should be looking for them to improve our culture. As we said, they're going to have a culture impact on their perspective. I think the learning culture, it's easy to get stagnant sometimes. When you bring someone in that was so excited last night because they got their first wireless card that could go into promiscuous mode, and they tried hacking their own Wi-Fi, like that kind of excitement is so hard to not get other people excited about, right? I get excited when someone else is telling me about whatever new tool they're learning, whatever new OSINT technology it was, or OSINT technique. I get thrilled. And so it sparks a fire in me. It sparks some emotion in me to get my butt in gear and keep learning, because we need to stay up to date. I think it's also easy to not be improving ourselves in a more traditional sense. So, like taking classes, going through courses, which somebody that is coming from the outside without a lot of experience is going to be naturally doing this, because I promise you they're going to have imposter syndrome. And they're going to want to do everything they can to prove that they're not a liability. Because that's how I felt. And that's how almost everybody I've spoken to that has moved to this field has felt at some point. I don't want to be a liability to the company. I want to be a value add. I want to be able to support the team. And I'm going to go above and beyond to show them that I can do that. So by doing that, they're taking courses, they're going through, like I said, YouTube videos, whatever it may be. And yeah, they are encouraging us to do it alongside them. And then some of their methods are going to be cool. They're going to bring good and bad habits. That was something I wanted to call out on here. We can't be afraid to tell somebody just because you're new, or we want to be sensitive to your experience. We also can't just stop operations, right? So we ought to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations and say this isn't how we do this, or this is why we do this, rather. Not so much this isn't what we do, but this is why we do this, and have an explanation. But as far as like tools and tactics, there was a guy that I worked with in audit, and he came from, I want to say he came from supply chain, and I was working in internal audit, and I was doing a active user review. So I wanted to see, or terminate user review. I wanted to see when these users were terminated, if it was within 24 hours of their HR termination date, all that fun stuff for SOX. And he came and showed me a VLOOKUP that I had never seen in an Excel spreadsheet that he had used in his supply chain role. And that thing just made my life so much easier. Like, I was familiar with VLOOKUP, but he brought this over. I was like, this just makes everything so much quicker. I got hours of my day back testing these terminated users because this guy who came from a totally unrelated field brought something really valuable. So I think they're going to have the ability to bring those types of tools, or any other tools we may not think of. We talked a bit earlier about qualities. I can't say that every person is going to be a good speaker. I can't say that every person is going to be the leader, but I think there are certain qualities that anybody that's going to try to come into this field has to have, and I'll show you why. I think perseverance is a must. If they have gotten to this point, having heard no, I guarantee they've heard no before, and they've still continued. They're going to have perseverance. They're going to have discipline. The majority of these people are working 9 to 5 somewhere else. They're working part-time somewhere else. You have to have a level of commitment and discipline to be able to do any type of learning outside of your already 9 to 5 life. Not even including kids or families or anything else. I have immense respect for somebody that is willing to learn outside of their normal jobs. It also costs self-investment. You're probably paying for courses like Udemy, or I paid for my first CEH course, or whenever I took the CEH course, I paid for that as a show of self-investment in myself, and I was already in the company. They just wouldn't pay for it. But yeah, I mean, I saved up for it and paid for it because I wanted to show myself that I'm really in it, and I'm in this field for the long haul. So last year, you may have seen it, there was a song that came out called Face Off with The Rock and Tech Nine, and I can't remember who else was on. But The Rock's whole verse, it was the first time we'd been on a rap song, and it became this big meme. So he starts it off with, it's about drive, it's about power, and that's why I put the picture of The Rock there, because it's iconic. But they have to have drive, right? Continually motivating themselves, because motivation is not always going to come extrinsically. They have to have something that motivates them, something that is going to keep them driving, even if they have heard, like I said, no before. And then humility, because imposter syndrome is already rampant in this field, and we are some of the biggest offenders. I talk to people that are industry vets, 20 plus years, 30 years, and they came from something unrelated. They still feel like they don't know anything. What I was saying, wrong way, before, this gives me imposter syndrome like nothing else. Like, I already feel like I frequently feel like I know my things very well, and I know other things pretty well. This just makes me think I know nothing. No, wrong way. So some questions, if you're interviewing, if you're talking to people that might be interested in this field, I think there are some questions we need to ask ourselves, and we need to ask prospects. Things to ask them is, what drew you to the field? Why are you interested in this? For me, I mentioned it a bit before, it was Wi-Fi hacking was the first thing that really drew me into cybersecurity specifically, or Infosec specifically. I knew I wanted to be on this end, but I didn't really have a driving interest until I had heard that Wi-Fi could be hacked. I was like, I don't know how that works, but let me Google it. And they said, well, you need to use AirCrack. And I said, okay, how do I install AirCrack on Windows? As the Chuck would say, you don't do that. So I learned about this thing called Linux. And I had no idea what Linux was. But piece by piece, and when I learned a term that I didn't know, I started looking at the next term, and slowly things started to make sense. I think people that are moving from other fields are going to have something that drew them here. So talk to them about it. Ask them why they want to come here. What do they do outside of work? We talked a bit about, I think these two are pretty correlated. What's your personal investment, and what do you do outside? If you're somebody that's trying to get into the field now, are you invested in a community? Are you going to your local meetups? Do you have a local ISACA chapter? Are you coming to events like BSides? This type of networking is so valuable to this field. I've made friends today that, I think we're going to connect other times. Kathy and I talked about DEF CON. We're going to connect at DEF CON, and these are so important. If you're trying to get into this field, go out and make friends, go out and meet people. I think it's one of the things that will be the best thing you can do in your career. And then if you're interviewing somebody, you should look for that. You should look for how are they staying engaged. Look for what do they do on their own. Have they set up a Raspberry Pi cloud at their home, or have they taken a coding boot camp? And then internally, some things we can be asking ourselves are what sets them apart from other people, from other candidates. Are they the excellent speaker? I know one of the transitions that's big right now is people coming from journalism into Infosec, because they're killer writers, and they can, if they know the concepts of BCDR, they can write great plans and they can write great policies, and it just makes sense. Like, I get that. So ask them, like, what's your bread and butter? What do you feel like? Or you can ask them or yourself what sets them apart. If you ask me, what sets me apart is my ability to create trust with people. From my counseling role, I have some great conflict de-escalation. I can't tell you a more awkward conversation than telling a parent that I'm going to recommend their child be removed from their house. So now, nothing makes me feel awkward, ever. Dead silence, nothing. There's just nothing that has made me feel more awkward. And so my ability to speak with people, my ability to build trust with people, those are some of my, I think, shining qualities. So you can ask them, look through while you're talking to them what sets them apart. See how they communicate. Even though that might not be their absolute strength, you need a good communicator. If you don't have somebody that can take constructive criticism, that's something that you're going to end up having, is you have to teach them, you have to guide them, so you need somebody that is willing to take constructive criticism. And then again, how are they going to affect the culture? Are they going to fit it, improve it, or what's the word for not improve? Detract. Yeah, I like that. It's not deprove, but that would be a good one. Improve it, detract from it, or just fit it. I had to Google how to pronounce this, but this is a phalanx formation, and I grabbed this from 300. And the point I want to make here is we don't need to change everything that we're doing to accommodate new people. I think that it is easy to hear what I'm saying and think, well, we got to baby them and we got to, make sure that everything's catered to them, and that's not at all what I'm saying. What I am saying is we need to work with them strategically to help them fill gaps that we may not even know about. And in this phalanx formation, all of the Spartans hold the shield, I think it's to the left, and they're covering the next person over their weak side. And I think that's what we can do if we strategically position these people. We're going to find gaps we didn't even know about that these people are going to fill. So let them play to their strengths. Figure out what their strengths are and put them in that role. Encourage them, because they're going to have imposter syndrome. Like I said, they're going to be working those extra hours trying to prove that they should be here, that they have a seat at the table. So encourage them when they do something well, and be honest with your constructive criticism. Give them honest feedback and let them know this was a miss, and that's okay. We're going to work through it. Yeah, and then opportunities to learn are a big one too. They're already active learners. Give them any opportunity to learn. Let them run with something. A couple practical examples. Me, this one. What's up?
How do you weed out quickly if they're coming in for the money or to actually learn and just change careers?
That's a great question. So the question was, how do you weed out if they're coming in for money or because they want to actually change careers? I wish there was a hard, fast answer to that. I think if you can look for some of those things, like I said, personal investment and interest outside of their normal jobs. So, for one example, if you have somebody that is coming from a law background, which we're seeing more people come from law into this, though that might not be for money. If you see somebody coming from another field, then, like I said, ask them what's their interest, why are they coming to it, what have you done to show that you're interested in it, what have you done to show self-investment in it. I think those are pretty key questions.
And I've worked for large corporations, and sometimes I see people in the field over different companies, and I really question why they're in that role and what they're doing, because they don't seem to be contributing.
Yeah.
It's a good part, but I know they're getting paid
Yeah.
beaucoup money.
And I think that there's some absolute truth to that. There are a lot of people in the field that treat this as a 9 to 5, and there is no real interest in it. It's just they went to school for it, and now this is what they're doing, and it starts at 9 and ends at 5. I think that's fine. I'm not going to be somebody that says you have to go do more. If you work so that you can do the things you want when you're not working, more power to you. I think that's great. I think there are other people that this is a big interest for them. This is something they do outside of their 9 to 5, and they really enjoy it. And they're going to thrive in the field because of that. I think you are doing yourself a disservice if you're not at least sometimes going outside your comfort zone. Go to a conference or two a year. Do something. Even if you don't love this field, you should be trying to do something to make yourself at least stay current. We don't have the luxury of sitting back and waiting for answers to come to us. This field is ever changing. So I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least go to a couple conferences or stay up to date. But like I said, if you just want to do this field to do what you want outside of work, go for it. I will say you would not be my first choice, because I want people that are very interested in this, and I want people that are going to be up at 2 a.m. trying to figure out what's happening. Not all the time, but they have that insatiable need to fix something or troubleshoot, or they love a challenge. So that's what I would say. There are some people that it's just gonna be a 9 to 5. There are others that they love this stuff. And so trying to find somebody that is on the ladder, it's a big ask, but I think some of those questions could lead you down that path. What's up?
If you have a candidate who has that intrinsic motivation and staying up until 2 a.m. and whatnot and solving problems in that way, do you find ways to effectively mentor them to bring in the entire onion of the soft skills they may lack or the things that may atrophy because of their focus on the main mission?
Yeah, that's so a way to make sure that they are holistically still kind of learning on both fronts, like their soft skill, flexing those skills, and learning the technical skills, like not pigeonholing themselves. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Precisely.
Yeah, I think that comes down to a management style. For me, I really look for people that want to, like I said, want to learn, and somebody that is willing to take some guidance. So if I see somebody that has put in the effort, that they're showing they really love this, I'm going to go out of my way because I value people. It's part of my counseling background, is that I really, even more than I love this field, I love people. So I'm looking for ways to help others. What that looks like changes all the time. When I was at my former role, I kept my counselor business card because people would come and talk to me and like shut my office door and we'd talk for a while, and I was the counselor there, so I still look for opportunities to help people however I can, and a lot of times that's just kind of guiding and mentoring. So I hope that answers what you were asking. Yeah? Cool. Some practical examples of people that have made the transition. Of course, I'm talking about me a lot. I don't like talking about myself, but I am the easiest one for me to talk about. There are some others in my life, and when I've presented this elsewhere, people have stopped me afterward and said, hey, I have a story for you. I have a story for you. Here's my background. BSides Knoxville, a couple weeks ago, a gentleman told me that he was a hard rock geologist before he came into this field, and now he is a IT infrastructure manager. Somebody else told me he was a professional trombone player, and now he leads a SOC. I have a friend personal friend that we met at a prior role, and he owned and operated a preschool. And so in the evenings, after all the kids went home, he would get on Try Hack Me, and he would just work for hours. And then in the morning, he would get up, get ready, and have kids at his preschool all day. But he knows how to run a business. He knows the things that are the greater picture in an organization now. He just got moved to another company, and he sees he's actually doing sales now because he sees the value in where his portion fits into the overall picture of the organization. I went to a certification course a few years ago, and there were a couple other people that were coming from like tangentially associated fields, but one was completely unrelated, like what I would have said, and he was a correctional officer at the county sheriff's office. And somebody said, you know, he worked his way up through the sheriff's office he was the program director at the prison, or the sheriff's office. And so somebody said to him, you probably know how the jail system works, right? I was like, yeah, I know that. And you probably know what you need to put outside to make sure that nobody escapes. Yeah, I know that. And they said, you know, there's a big field in compliance for physical security. It's like, well, what does that mean? And so he went, did this course. This course that we did was specific to ISO 27001. So we were like just hammering down on that. And he started seeing the value in all of his physical security background. Things that were second nature to him were so foreign to everyone else. And so now he is a consultant. He's a lead physical security consultant. And I think that's a really, really cool one. One that I never would have thought of before. We have somebody on my team that has a marketing and branding background, and she's done a ton of the marketing from the social media side, and now she has used that in our field. She uses that to communicate with other people in Infosec, and she's built a following, and through that following she's had great opportunities to talk to other people that are leaders in the field, and she learns from them. And she's constantly, I would say, at the cutting edge of new technology because she's learned the right way to talk to people. One of the most valuable things I think you can have, like I said, is just how do you talk to people, how do you build that trust quickly. I think I've spoken about myself enough for you to see why I think my counseling background has been beneficial, but I could go on and on. There are a lot of examples of people that have done this. You guys are examples of people that have done this. I just think it's the coolest thing, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But in conclusion, a couple things I just wanted to leave you with. We really need well-rounded information security professionals. We need people that are, and I keep saying it, the lifelong learners, the critical thinkers, the troubleshooters. We need them because the current workforce cannot match the need. We just don't have it right now. We can bring, these people can bring really solid qualities, things that you are going to look for in any candidate. You might have to invest in them a bit more early on, but it's going to pay off in the long run. I will tell you personally, I remember the name of the person that took a chance on me at my first security role, and I text her, or I will call her whenever I get a new promotion and just say I want to thank you for taking a chance on me. I have other friends in my life that I do that with as well that were very influential in my walk. So whenever something big happens to me, I let them know because I'm eternally grateful for that. And I think that if you take a chance on somebody that is in that boat, you're going to have that same relationship. And then the other thing is just we need to find the right candidates. I don't want to leave you with every person coming from another field is going to be a great candidate because I don't think that's true. I think there are ways to weed people out. Unfortunately, not everybody is a gem, but I think if we're asking the right questions, we go in with the right mindset, know what we're looking for, we're going to set ourselves up for success. Any other questions? No? Oh, what's up?
I just had a
question for motivating to like senior management. So if we're like looking to hire someone or anything like that, trying to convince them to say, hey, maybe we should develop this person internally that we already have, or get someone kind of more green and get them into this role rather than what we're actually looking for. What types of conversations would you be looking for, especially with managers, to try and convince them or get buy-in that this is a better approach, especially with the market facing with the employees?
So the question was, how would you go about convincing management to invest in somebody that's already in the organization rather than looking outside? And I think that's tough. There are times when the need is so great in the moment that you're not going to win that battle. They want somebody experienced to come in immediately, just jump right in and start running, whether it's assessments or they want you to run, whatever it may be. They want someone right away. My thought on that would be plan ahead. Start talking about what do we see the forecast for the rest of the year or the coming years, and what roles do we think might need to be filled. If we only have one senior engineer and they know everything, a lot of smaller organizations has that one guy that knows everything. There's no redundancy for that. We don't know if that person quits, something happens to them, we are screwed. Start having those conversations early and start investing. Talking to them about the value of bringing that person in to get them to that point. Another thing is people are leaving. We talked about this, like people are leaving left and right positions because it's tough to get a raise right now unless you go somewhere else. So if, as hiring managers, as people in management, if you have the conversation of maybe we should bring somebody from that's already on the team and bring them up to this pay grade or this pay rate, I can tell you, one, that's a massive morale boost because that person's going to feel very appreciated. And I think there's no greater currency in business than appreciation and gratitude. If you can make somebody feel appreciated and valued, then you'll have a friend for a very long time. So having that kind of mindset will be another thing I bring up to somebody in a management role. Did you have a question?
Yeah. First of all, I like the questions that you brought up of what questions should be asked of the interviewing of yourself. Going past that, if they choose to give someone a chance, how can they support that person during the onboarding process because they came from a different field? Everyone's going to be unique. Everyone's going to have different needs. Is there any kind of general approach that people can use to easily incorporate people into their organizations? Have you heard of a good onboarding process, basically?
Yeah. So is there good tips or good practices for bringing somebody from another field and encouraging them and supporting them while they're being onboarded? I'm a fan of the buddy system. This person, for me, like I said, I came into an IAM role, which there's a lot of nuance there. I wasn't a specialist. I was essentially a help desk level, but specifically for IAM. And I did the buddy system. I watched somebody else and I asked questions. And if my colleague didn't know the right answer, I'd ask the manager. So if you are in a role where you have the ability to bring somebody in, I would say utilize the buddy system. Use the knowledge that's already there and have them learn from that. And then I don't think it's a massive ask, some of you may disagree, to set up half an hour a week to talk with this person and see how are they, do they have any questions about anything that's going, and just show a level of investment. If I haven't made it very clear, I'm very people-centric, so the more that you can focus on the person and how they fit into the organization and value them, I think that's where you're going to get the best result.
Thank you.
Anything else? Cool. Well, I am Ross Flynn. Like I said, you can email me there. You can hit me up on Twitter, or you can introduce yourself with a firm handshake. I like any of those. But thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time.